You know that feeling. Sunday night hits, and it's like, okay, tomorrow's the day I start that new routine.
Oh, absolutely. Tomorrow I build that habit. It's such a common thought.
Totally. And if you're listening, chances are you've definitely been there. Maybe more than once.
It's universal, really. We all want to structure things better, get those helpful routines going.
Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today. We've been looking into the daily routines, the habits of some really successful, productive people.
Yeah, both contemporary figures and some fascinating folks from history, too.
Think of it as kind of a guided tour. Maybe find some inspiration, see what might actually work for you.
But first, maybe we should quickly clear up the terms. Routine versus habit. They get used interchangeably, but there's a difference.
Good point. Yeah.
So, a habit is more automatic. It's triggered by something like brushing your teeth after a meal. The meal ending is the trigger. Boom, you brush.
Right. Autopilot.
Exactly. Whereas a routine, that's more conscious, a sequence you decide to follow. It's not necessarily automatic or tied to one specific trigger.
Like deciding to go for a run every day. You have to actively choose that.
Precisely. It takes that deliberate effort.
Okay. So habits, automatic, routines, conscious effort. But, our schedules are already so full. Why even bother adding more structure? Isn't it just more stuff to manage?
That's a really fair question. It seems counterintuitive, right? But studies actually suggest routines and habits can free up mental energy.
Free up energy? How?
Well, by making those repetitive tasks automatic, like through habits, you reduce the cognitive load. Basically, the amount of brain power you're using for mundane stuff.
Ah, okay. So less thinking about the boring bits leaves more room for
Creativity, innovation, problem solving. Plus, the consistency itself can boost your quality of life, give you a sense of control.
Okay, I'm sold on the why. Let's get into the who and what's. This is where it gets really interesting. Let's start with some contemporary people. Barack Obama.
Right. So during his presidency, reports say he'd wake up around 7 a.m.
Pretty standard time.
Yeah, but then bang, straight into a 45-minute workout. Cardio and weights.
Wow, first thing.
Uh-huh. And he always made time for breakfast with his family before heading to the Oval Office. Workday was intense, obviously, 9 a.m. to maybe 6:30 p.m.
Long days.
Very. But then dinner with the family was a priority, putting the kids to bed, even if he had briefings to review late into the night, often past midnight.
So the key things there, consistent exercise and never skipping breakfast, plus that family time buffer.
Exactly. That discipline to keep those personal boundaries despite the immense pressure is really striking. It says a lot about protecting well-being.
Okay, now compare that to, say, Queen Elizabeth II.
Ah, yes. Talk about consistency. Across what, nearly 7 decades?
Incredible.
Her routine was remarkably stable. Wake up 7:30 a.m., morning news and tea in her room.
Very civilized.
Then a bath, light breakfast around 8:30. Work starts at 9 a.m., apparently signaled by bagpipes.
Bagpipes.
Yeah. Reading papers, those famous red boxes. Meeting dignitaries around 11 a.m.
Well,
Lunch at 12:30. Afternoon work, maybe meeting the prime minister.
still going?
Tea at 4:30 p.m., dinner at 7:30. Then some TV, journaling maybe, and bed by 11 p.m.
The standout thing there is just the sheer adherence
Yeah.
for so long.
Absolutely. It really suggests that a predictable structure can be a powerful anchor for, well, a lifetime of duty.
All right, let's shift gears quite a bit. Jack Dorsey.
Ah, yes. When he was CEO of both Twitter and Block, his routine was intense, is maybe an understatement.
Okay, lay it on us.
Wake up at 5 a.m.
Oof, early.
Then meditation, a run, often followed by an ice bath or sauna.
Whoa, ice bath.
Yep. Then, get this, a 90-minute walk to work.
90 minutes walking.
Listening to podcasts or just thinking time. Starts work proper around 9 a.m. And famously, only one meal a day dinner around 6:30 p.m.
That's extreme.
It is. But the other really interesting thing was his theme days.
Right, I remember hearing about that.
Monday for management, Tuesday for product, Wednesday marketing growth, Thursday developers partners, Friday recruiting culture.
So dedicating whole days, that must help with focus, avoiding that whiplash feeling.
Exactly. It's a strategy to minimize context switching. His whole routine, while maybe not for everyone, screamed intentionality. Every piece seemed deliberate.
Okay, let's pivot again. Oprah Winfrey. Seems like a different vibe.
Very much so. A noticeably gentler approach. She tries to wake up between 6 month and 6:20 a.m., but crucially without an alarm.
Letting her body decide.
Kind of, yeah. Listening to natural rhythms. Then walks the dogs, coffee with affirmations, meditation, or spiritual exercises around 8:30 a.m.
Still quite structured, though.
Oh, definitely. Then exercise and breakfast around 9, often gardening until lunch at 12:30, work in the afternoon, 1:30 to 6,
And evenings?
dinner around 6, then reading or family time, a long bath, and aiming for bed around 10:15 p.m.
The key thing you mentioned there was waking up without an alarm. That's often linked to better sleep, right?
It is. It suggests prioritizing sleep quality and starting the day feeling rested and self-directed, not jolted into it, a focus on well-being as the foundation.
Okay, contrast that with Elon Musk.
Right. Seems to operate on less sleep, wakes around 7 a.m. after maybe 6 hours.
6 hours is not a lot for most people.
No. First thing is shower, then coffee. Breakfast is optional. He apparently avoids calls, minimizes email,
How does he structure work then?
reportedly in these intense 5-minute blocks.
5 minutes, seriously.
That's the claim. Super focused bursts. Meals are often skipped or very brief, except for a normal dinner. Workday often ends late, like 10 p.m.
And then straight to bed.
Nope. Reading or watching anime, apparently, bed around 1 a.m.
Okay, so key things.
Yeah.
Those 5-minute work blocks, which is a kind of extreme time boxing.
Uh-huh. And the shower first thing, some people think that helps regulate your circadian rhythm, your body clock.
Interesting. Okay, what about Anna Wintour, Vogue editor?
Known for being an early riser, like 4 or 5 a.m. early.
Wow, what does she do then?
Catches up on news, exercises, plans her day, gets to the office by 8 or 8:30 a.m. for meetings.
So the early start is for prep.
Seems like it. Afternoons often involve off-site meetings or events. She leaves the office around 5 p.m., but apparently takes homework with her. Bedtime is around 10 p.m.
So the big takeaway is just leveraging those super early hours to get ahead.
Pretty much. Using that quiet time before the day's chaos really kicks in.
Now, Evan Williams, co-founder of Twitter, blogger, Medium, he does things a bit differently.
Yeah, his approach is more about energy management. He works when his focus is highest, which for him tends to be early morning.
Okay.
But then he takes a break midday to go to the gym and then comes back to work afterwards.
So splitting the day around his energy peaks in a workout.
Exactly. It's about aligning the schedule with his own biological rhythms, not just forcing it. Makes you think about tracking your own peak times, doesn't it?
It really does. Then there's Leo Babauta from Zen Habits.
Yeah.
Very structured morning, right?
Extremely. Wakes 4:30 a.m., drinks water,
Yeah.
decides his top 3 tasks for the day,
Top 3. Okay, focus.
packs his lunch, eats breakfast while reading, then meditation or exercise, then wakes the family around 6:30 a.m.
So that early block is intensely focused on priorities.
Yes. The core idea is tackling the most important things first to avoid getting bogged down in multitasking later. Clarity and intention from the get-go.
And one more contemporary example, Angela Merkel.
Ah, yes. Former German chancellor, typically up around 5 a.m., breakfast 30 minutes later, famously biked to the office sometimes.
I remember reading that.
Afternoon included time for exercise. Leisure involved reading, museums, gardening. Sleep was apparently flexible. She could manage on 4 hours if needed.
But the constant was activity.
Yes, prioritizing physical activity seemed key. Even with that incredibly demanding job, exercise was consistently part of the routine. It suggests a link between physical well-being and handling high stress.
Okay, so looking back at all these modern examples,
Yeah.
what are the common threads, if any?
Well, several things pop out. Pretty much everyone follows some kind of routine or schedule. They stick to it.
Right, structure is common.
Waking up early, generally before 7 a.m., is very frequent. Eating breakfast is common, though not universal cough, Jack Dorsey cough.
Yeah.
Exercise is a big one. Lots of them incorporate it. And that idea of blocking out time, consciously scheduling activities, time management seems very proactive.
Okay, that gives us a good picture of the present day. Now let's travel back in time a bit. Historical figures. Virginia Woolf.
Okay, the celebrated writer. She had a very defined writing window, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Every day.
Seems like it was the goal. Then lunch. Afterwards, she'd review what she wrote. Afternoon tea time was for journaling or letters. Evenings for socializing or reading.
So that strict 10 to 1 block was key, especially given her struggles with mental health. The routine as an anchor.
Exactly. It likely provided crucial stability and focus for her creative work. That structure can be incredibly grounding.
John Milton, author of Paradise Lost. Different era, different routine.
Quite specific, actually. Bed by 9 p.m., but waking up before 4 a.m.
Whoa, that's early.
Very. Then an hour of meditation. Work from 7 a.m. till noon. Lunch. Then his exercise was interesting. a 3-hour walk in his garden.
3 hours, okay.
From about 1 p.m. to 4 p.m., evenings were for socializing and dinner, then back to bed by 9 p.m.
So the key there is the balance that super early start for focused work, but matched with an early bedtime for good sleep.
Right, a very holistic view, aligning intense work with proper rest and recovery.
Voltaire,
Yeah.
a prolific writer, philosopher. What was his day like?
A bit unusual, slept roughly midnight to 4 a.m.
Another short sleeper.
Seems so. He'd often dictate from bed after waking up, didn't get dressed or see visitors until around noon.
Late start to the public day.
Then horseback riding in the afternoon, maybe 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. More work after that until dinner around 8 p.m. Then often worked again until midnight.
So long work periods, but broken up.
Yes, with deliberate breaks for physical activity like riding and for social time. Shows you can structure things differently, integrating work and breaks.
Benjamin Franklin always pops up in discussions about productivity.
Ah, yes. Big on self-improvement. Woke at 5 a.m. Famously asked himself, what good shall I do today?
Setting the intention right away.
Exactly. His workday had clear blocks like 8 a.m. to noon, then 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. Evenings involved socializing, music, and before bed around 10 p.m. he'd ask, what good have I done today?
That reflective piece is powerful.
Absolutely. And he had that quirky air bath habit too. But the core seems to be that daily focus on intention and reflection, a feedback loop for growth.
Susan Sontag, more recent writer and filmmaker.
Right. She aimed to wake before 8 a.m., usually. Gave herself one day off. Mornings were strictly for writing.
And the key?
No phone during writing time. Deliberately avoided it. Afternoons were for calls, socializing, evenings for reading.
Protecting that focus time is crucial, especially now.
Totally. Her routine really highlights the battle against distraction, especially tech distractions, for deep work.
Okay, Picasso,
Yeah.
the artist. Surely a different pattern.
Oh, yeah. A much later start. Usually woke around 11 a.m.
11 a.m.
Light breakfast. Maybe socializing until 2 p.m. Then intense painting from 2 p.m., often until 10 p.m. at night.
Wow, an 8-hour block.
And sometimes more. Dinner, relax a bit, then maybe back to the studio from 11 p.m. until 3 a.m.
So he worked when he felt most creative, even if that was super late.
Exactly. It completely flips the early bird narrative. It's about your peak energy time, whatever that is.
Mozart, another creative genius, early riser.
Yes, typically awake by 5 a.m., composing from about 6:30 a.m. to 8:30 a.m., then teaching often until 1 p.m.
Busy schedule.
Afternoon could be more composing or maybe a concert. Often another composing session late at night, 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. before sleep.
So like others, he blocked his time for different activities.
Specific slots for composing, teaching, performing. A way to manage the diverse demands of his career. Time blocking and action.
Beethoven, another composer titan. Similar.
He seemed to prioritize sleep more. Bed around 9 p.m., wake around 6 a.m.
More conventional sleep.
Yeah. Morning ritual involved preparing his coffee very particularly, then composing from about 6:30 a.m. until mid-afternoon to 30 p.m. maybe with breaks. Evenings were for socializing or concerts until his 9 p.m. bedtime.
Seems quite balanced.
It does. Sufficient rest, focused work, social time, a well-rounded structure supporting that incredible creative output.
Maya Angelou, author, poet. Her routine had a unique element, didn't it?
Yes, the environment piece. She woke early, 5:30 a.m., but then to write, she'd rent a cheap hotel room nearby.
A hotel room? Why?
Minimalist, bare walls, no distractions from home. She'd write there from about 7 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Creating a dedicated writing space away from everything else.
Precisely. Then she'd go home, read over her work, shower, cook dinner, review the work again with her husband in the evening, bed around 10 p.m.
That really underlines how much our surroundings can impact focus.
Absolutely. Deliberately crafting an optimal environment for deep work.
Coco Chanel, fashion icon. Her routine.
Quite different again. Didn't usually arrive at her salon until around 1 p.m.
The late starter, like Picasso.
Yeah. Once there, she'd apparently work standing up, often for hours on her designs. Rarely took breaks, stayed late. Greeted by Chanel No. 5 spray when she arrived, apparently.
Huh. Okay. So her key was just working intensely during her chosen hours, aligning with her own rhythm.
Seems like it. Success on her own terms, schedule-wise.
Sigmund Freud, psychoanalysis founder. Long hours, presumably.
Yes, but structured. Wake 7 a.m., breakfast, grooming, then patient sessions from 8 a.m. to noon,
Morning block done.
then lunch, a dedicated walk from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m.
Break for activity.
Crucial, likely. Then more patient sessions, 3 p.m. right through to 9 p.m.
Wow, intense afternoon, evening.
Dinner, family time, reading or writing until about 1 a.m., then sleep.
So even with those incredibly long work hours, he built in that break, that physical activity. Self-care almost.
Exactly. That daily walk was likely vital for mental decompression in such a demanding job.
Victor Hugo, Les Miserables, Hunchback of Notre Dame. Any quirks?
Oh, a few. Woke around 6 a.m., had writing blocks like 6:30 a.m. to 11 a.m., and again 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. But
What?
he famously sometimes wrote naked
Naked? Why?
to avoid the temptation of getting up and going outside. Removed his clothes so he'd have to stay put and write.
That's a commitment. Or desperation.
Me both. His day also included an ice bath, exercise 1 to 3 p.m., visits to his barber and, well, his mistress. Evenings involved dinner, cards, going out.
Quite the full life. So, unique methods to beat procrastination whilst being very social.
Right, finding what works, however unconventional, to stay on task.
And one last historical one. Joan Didion, journalist, novelist.
Early riser, wrote after breakfast.
But
Here's the thing. She apparently spent hours just thinking, making notes before actually starting to write, often late afternoon.
so the thinking was part of the scheduled work.
Very much so. Evenings often included reviewing the day's writing before dinner, and she'd isolate herself, avoiding people when deep in writing a book.
Key element there seems to be structuring time not just for writing, but for the thinking and facing the difficulty of starting.
Exactly. Recognizing that the pre-work, the mental grappling, is essential to the creative process.
Okay, wow, that's a lot of history. Looking back at all these figures, Woolf, Milton, Franklin, Picasso, Angelou, all of them, what are the common threads here?
Well, again, the absolute constant is they all had a routine, some structure they followed.
That seems universal.
Beyond that, many incorporated exercise, socializing was often present, and daily work on their craft, their skill, was key. But
But
their specific habits around sleep, eating, even how they exercised, wildly different. Picasso's late nights versus Milton's super early ones, it really drives home that personalization is crucial. What works is what works for you.
okay, so we've seen the successful outliers, past and present. Let's bring it back home. What does a day look like for the average American today? What does the data say?
Right. Looking at recent data, say around 2020, most Americans wake up a bit later, generally 7 a.m. to 9 a.m.
Okay.
Morning routines, then work or housework starts picking up. Peak productivity is often reported around 11 a.m.
Mid-morning focus.
Lunch is typically noon to 1 p.m., more work in the afternoon. End of the main workday, around 5 p.m. for many.
Sounds familiar.
Dinner prep, evening plans kick in. Dinner itself around 6 p.m. Then evenings, maybe 7:39 p.m., are often for socializing, hobbies, relaxation, TV,
Winding down.
personal care, getting ready for bed, often after 10 p.m. And most people are in bed by midnight.
But you mentioned some caveats with the data.
Yes, some important stats.
Hmm.
Only about 35% consistently get the recommended 8 hours of sleep. A fair number, maybe 8 million or so, skip breakfast regularly, and only about 19% meet recommended physical activity levels.
Ouch. So how does that compare overall to the successful people we discussed?
Well, you see higher rates of skipping breakfast and definitely less regular exercise in the general population data compared to our group of high achievers.
But some similarity.
Sure. Waking times aren't drastically different from some. Bedtimes are in a reasonable window for many. People do socialize, have hobbies, have some kind of routine, even if it's less deliberately structured, perhaps.
Okay, so we've looked at all these examples, seen the averages. Let's get practical. What are the key takeaways for you listening right now? How can you use this to become maybe a bit more productive, feel a bit better?
Based on everything we've covered, we've kind of distilled it down to 4 main actionable ideas you could try. First one, prioritize your night routine.
Night routine, not morning.
Exactly. So much hype around morning routines, but good sleep is the foundation. Focus on sleep quality and consistency. Dr. Matthew Walker, the sleep scientist, hammers this home. Regularity is key for your body clock.
So same bedtime, same wake-up time, roughly.
As much as possible, yeah. And have a wind-down routine. An hour before bed, do something relaxing. Crucially, no screens for at least the last 30 minutes.
That's the hard part for many.
It is. Maybe read a physical book, listen to calm music, light stretching. Oh, and maybe try a worry journal. Jot down anxieties before you try to sleep so they don't swirl in your head.
Get it out on paper. Okay, solid advice. Sleep first. What's takeaway number 2?
Second, maximize your peak productivity times. We saw this with Evan Williams, Picasso. Pay attention to when you feel sharpest for different kinds of tasks.
Become aware of your own energy cycles.
Exactly. Maybe track it for a week. When do you have focus for deep work? When are you better suited for emails or admin? Then, try to schedule your most important, demanding tasks during those peak hours.
Instead of just doing emails first thing because it's easy.
Right. Align the task difficulty with your energy level. Work with your biology, not against it.
Makes sense. Okay, number 3.
Third, don't ignore your to-do list. Or rather, don't just make the list. Apply Peter Brigman's idea. When you list a task, decide right then and there when and where you'll do it.
Schedule it immediately.
Yeah, it creates a clear intention, moves it from a vague should do to a concrete plan. You're way more likely to actually get it done.
Like, write report Tuesday, 10 a.m. at my desk.
Precisely that. Specificity increases follow-through.
Okay, practical. Love it. And the final takeaway.
Number 4, make time for self-care. And really make time. Don't treat it as optional or something you earn.
It's not a reward, it's maintenance.
Exactly. It's essential to prevent burnout and sustain productivity long term. Identify things you genuinely enjoy that nurture your mind or spirit.
Like what?
Could be anything.
Yeah.
Watching a show you love, listening to music, yoga, meditation, sitting quietly, a walk in nature, whatever recharges you. Try to schedule at least an hour for it daily.
An hour. Wow.
Treat it like a crucial appointment, non-negotiable. It fuels everything else.
Okay, those are 4 really solid, actionable points. So as we kind of wrap this up,
I think the main thing, the big picture, is just reinforcing that there's no single magic formula, no one best routine fits all.
yeah, the variety we saw was huge. What worked for Picasso wouldn't have worked for Milton, and vice versa.
Totally. So the invitation to you, the listener, is maybe take a moment. Reflect on what tends to throw your day off track, what drains you.
And conversely, what helps?
Right. And then maybe just pick one beneficial thing you'd like to do more consistently. Start small. Add that consistency. Maybe make a note each night. How did it go? How did it feel?
Yeah, just pay attention, because ultimately that's how you build something sustainable.
And maybe here's a final thought to leave you with. By really tuning into your own needs, your energy, what genuinely helps you feel good and focused, and by experimenting thoughtfully with some of the ideas we've talked about.
You can start to piece together your routine, the routine that works for your version of a highly productive and hopefully fulfilling life.